Okay, it is 6 o'clock on Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. This is a meeting of the Norwalk Conservation Commission and Inland Wetland Agency. Could we have roll call, please?
Yes, Paul Bennett,
Present.
Ed Holenko,
Here.
Steve Poppy,
I'm here.
Heather Breslin.
Here.
Have a quorum.
Lovely. Anyone online to make public comment?
No, there is no one present.
Wonderful. All right, receipt and discussion, S24-645, 36 Range Road.
All right, so this is, as noted on the agenda, corrective action application following the issuance of an order, and the application was received on October 1st, which was the deadline given in the order. The applicant is here tonight. I think when I emailed you your packet last week, we had not received the digital copy of the application materials due to a technical snafu. And I haven't checked. I'm going there now. I think we got everything up on the website. And so just to review, this is Range Road, which is in Rowayton. The back of the property includes Farm Creek Brook, and the activity is in and adjacent to the brook and the adjacent wetland, and in the upland review area, which encompasses the backyard of 36 Range Road. And I'll note that Catherine Knight arrived just a second ago. Applicant, this is the receipt of your application. So the receipt date marks, kind of starts the clock for the agency for their consideration of the application. State statutes have some timelines that for action that start on this receipt date. They can't take any action this evening except potentially schedule a public hearing in the future. And so often at the receipt, they like to have kind of a brief presentation or kind of overview of your application, so it's kind of their first look at your application, all together as a group. So I don't know if you have anything prepared, or if you're welcome to share your screen if you want, or if you'd like, I can share my screen and you can talk.
I did not have anything prepared. I thought this was the public hearing, so I can certainly go off the cuff. But no, I did not prepare anything. So let me just start with the application consists of really two components. We completed a large amount of work in the upland review area, which was primarily a replacement of pre-existing conditions, but updated. After completing that work, we put down turf, artificial turf and gravel inside the actual wetland area, primarily as a means to combat the some invasive species that were overtaking the yard. So that's what was, I believe, primarily driving the corrective action. We also didn't realize we had to submit we had to submit for a permit for the work in the upland review area, because I didn't know what an upland review area was. But so the application really has two components. First is describing and retroactively filing a permit for work in the upland review area. And the second component is to propose and discuss remediation of what the putting down turf and gravel in the actual wetland area, which hopefully should be relatively straightforward. So that's the general scope. Would it, like, how could I best discuss it? I can share a map and show what those two things are. I have I think I have other files on my end as well. But what would be most helpful?
You're muted, Steve.
Excuse me. I think he's saying a map would
I'm
be
just, I'd
good.
like to defer to Alexis on this. I
I
mean,
mean, I
we
can
s-
take you through the, what was submitted, the paper copy and, I'm pointing to my other screen, the digital copy, and Mr. Anderson can kind of chime in as we go through that, maybe? Just so that you start
That
to,
would be good.
okay. So I will, all right, let me share my screen. And we'll do this. All right. So this is, and Mr. Anderson just chime in. This is a updated survey that was done very recently. And
It was this year.
2024.
Yes.
And so again, the Range Road, it's actually a through lot, but the property is accessed through Range Road. There's a driveway here. This is the primary residence. And then it's this area outlined here that is the subject of the violation that was sent. So the dashed line with the W and the numbers is the limit of the inland wetlands that were flagged in 2018, I believe it was. This is the Farm Creek Brook that flows from north to south and cuts across the property. As Mr. Anderson noted, this work here, including an upper level patio turf area, a raised bed, and then the lowest level turf area and kind of gravel patio, are both within the wetland and within the upland review area. Let me go to next. So the applicant submitted a narrative, which I encourage you all to read at your own leisure. But
And-
there is a description of the intended project, and it's broken up into the work that happened within the upland review area. And there's a sketch of the area outside of the wetland. So in this map, the wetland line is approximately in this area here. And the pond and the brook is kind of just off the sketch. And so this is kind of the masonry and landscape pictures that were done within the upland review area. And then the work within the wetland is described in this paragraph, and then the proposed work within the wetland, the remediation, is described here, which would involve removing the artificial turf, installing a natural mulch path, installing new wetland plantings, and reseed any other areas with grass or lawn.
That is a question.
So then there's a mix
I
of
just have a question on the drawing there. Sorry, there's no concrete. Where's the concrete pond?
It is bottom, like below this would be the concrete pond. So this is oriented 90 degrees off of what the survey showed. So
So, well, this is 2016. So this is let me zoom back out. So this is the Farm Creek Brook. And according to Mr. Anderson, the ponded area, let's see if I can find a better aerial photo, is lined with concrete underneath it.
yeah, a dam was constructed at the south portion, or what is at the bottom of the screen. So there's a dam there, and then what we didn't know at first, but what we found later was that the entire bottom of the pond is concrete.
So a line pond.
what?
So that is actually not uncommon. In the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it was very stylish to have an in-stream pool. And I've come across multiple of these in Norwalk and other places in Fairfield County, where a stream was ponded and then dammed to make a pond, and then that pond was lined with various materials.
Wow.
Not unheard of. I have not verified it myself. I have not been out there. But it is still part of that Farm Creek work. But
Sure.
yes. Yeah. And I have not looked into when it was done for this location. Haven't had the time. But.
Okay.
So if you'd like, Alexis, I don't know, how do you want to talk about
Yeah.
here? I would recommend we start with break it up into two things. One is the work in the upland review area, and then
Okay.
separately what was done in the remediation effort in the actual wetland. Does that make sense for everybody?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so I did my best to draw out the pre-existing conditions superimposed on that survey, which shows the current conditions. And I'll screen share if that's okay. I apologize for how drafty this looks. Like the pre-existing conditions are no longer here, so there's no surveyor who would actually come out and do it. And I know the aerials were extremely difficult to discern what the where the walls were, but allow me to show you.
While you're prepping to share, I just also want to note that I did send the applicant a preliminary review letter, which I believe that I sent to all of you commissioners. And one of the comments was that the survey was excellent at showing the existing location, but it doesn't necessarily show, it's a 2D. It doesn't really show kind of the height of the retaining walls or the amount of activity, and that using the survey as a base map, the commission really needs a series of site plans to better understand what you're being asked to approve. So there's a series of activities, and so the typically a corrective action application would have a pre-existing condition map, a post unpermitted work map that shows the scope and scale of the work that was done, and then the proposed map that would show any changes from the current conditions moving forward.
Mr. Anderson, you understand that?
I understand that. I think
You know
in
what it means. Get an engineer hired.
What is the engineer going to describe about the existing conditions that are no longer there, though?
Well, Alexis just gave you like a 3-layer explanation of what that engineer is going to do for you. So I can ask her to regurgitate it, or we can just cut to the chase. So maybe she can give us a Cliff's Notes in case you missed it.
I mean, so I would say that looking at the regulations and the type of the detailed information typically required for a significant or an intermediate application would be performed either by a site engineer or a landscape architect, or a combination of them both. But I know that you had been sharing your screen. If you want to show the pre-conditions, I agree that might be something that is going to be based on your interpretation of aerial photographs and any site photographs that we have before the work. It's really the proposed activity that you may need some assistance from professionals. So
Yeah, so the landscape architect is also an engineer, right? I hope he did some of the foundation work on our house. And he was the one, like, effectively, I just need to know what I need him to do. We have his landscape plan. He designed the engineered wall that formed the retaining wall and did all the work. So we didn't develop the types of design plans that might have been present if we had known they would have been required. So we can ask him to retroactively do that. Like we still work with him, and
Okay.
so that's
So-
as long as you can let me know what we need, then I can ask him to.
Well, that's a good start. So letting us know what's there right now in 3 dimensions. And then letting us know how you're gonna back away from what you've done. So you're gonna have to design the undesigned, if that makes any sense. So basically, okay, I'm sorry, maybe I've got impatient, but starting back way before any of us were ever born, people started screwing around with this waterway, right? And it happens. What we're here to do is uphold the state statutes that sort of, help us look out for those waterways, even if they haven't been looked out for in the past. So when I say to undesign what you designed, it means that we're going to have to take a strong look at backing away from the waterway, taking a look at undoing some of the things that you've done, and then putting the wetland and even probably some of the upland review area back into a condition that is more natural and is going to, meet the intent of these wetlands and waterways, their functions. And it's not a individual property owner function, it is, all of us together function, if that makes any sense.
I understand where you're coming from for that. Like,
Okay.
we can apply that to the specifics of this work. Why don't I share what was and currently is in the upland review area and start there? Because I think
Okay.
the wetlands what's in the wetlands is kind of a different story, because that's where I'll need you to tell me where to draw the line. Like,
Well, you're gonna have to
story-
get pretty much everything out of the wetlands. AstroTurf, for example, no. We're gonna have to restore that to a somewhat natural condition.
Yes, and that's
Okay.
part 2 of the proposal, is that remediation.
Why don't we start there?
Okay. So I'll screen share what okay. So the delineation of the wetland is basically everything. This is east of like the lower retaining wall. So this is effectively
North is up on these plans. North is up. Yep. North is up on the drawing.
This is a screenshot of it for us
Rough.
to have a conversation around it.
Mhm.
So so everything east of this dotted line here, the wetland marker, were things that were not like engineered plans. Like, we had excess turf and I rolled it out. Like, this was not something that we did, because I can show you a
Okay.
pic. What's that?
Keep going. Yep.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter why or how, really. Let's just talk about what is and then how we're going to undo
Sure.
it.
So what the cause for me rolling it out was, I can show you a picture of what the backyard
That's the
looked
why.
like.
We're not worried about the why. We're not
Well,
worried about the why.
I think it's pertinent because the invasive species that were problematic are still around. And so what I'd love to know is, okay, we remove the turf, remove the gravel. Like,
Yeah.
what's a strategy to
Your landscape
that-
architect, site engineer will be able to help you with that.
So the proposal in this area is to basically roll up the turf and replant the grass that was there beforehand and some other wetland plantings. They're outlined in the our landscape architect gave us a sketch of this area. So
Let me save you some time. Inside the wetland, turf isn't gonna fly, whether it's synthetic or natural. So
so
if you're talking to someone who's familiar with how we do things as far as the wetland agency goes, they should have suggested that to you, that it's a no-go, basically.
sorry, grass in general is a no-go in this area.
Turf. I mean,
Right,
inside a
so-
wetland,
Yeah,
while I've
I'm
been
s-
around,
Yeah, so maybe you go to if you have yeah, if you could share your proposed restoration plan.
Yeah, I could do. So what was in this area when we bought the house was grass. Not artificial turf, but just grass. So the initial sketch from our landscape architect looks something like this, basically. So this is that same, he used the same survey because there's only one. So these colors are linked with different wetland plantings. I think he went to the Norwalk site and looked at wetland plants. And honestly, we'll put whatever in there makes sense. But the idea is basically remove the turf, remove this gravel area. It's just gravel on top of one of the cloth. I forget. I'm sorry. I don't remember what they're called, but
Like a geotextile?
yes, something like that. Laid that out, put gravel on top, so we can pull that out easily and hope that the bamboo doesn't come back. But that's the idea. Pull that back, roll up the turf, and then plant either grass, which is what was there before, or scatter around some wetland plants along the water frontage. So this is the remediation plan. Very straightforward, and that's more or less because the work that was done there was pretty simple.
Commissioner Knight,
Yeah, I just to be clear, like wetlands are typically not areas where we encourage activity in them because they have a really important function. And so we tend, as Steve said, to have them be natural spaces to the extent that we can protect them. You know, and putting in things that just help filter water as it's for the runoff, you know, in the upland review area as a buffer. So I think the walking path might not really be in compliance with the best outcome for a wetland.
And this is where like I genuinely want to work together on the right approach here, because we're talking about restoring an indigenous area, but realistically, this is a dammed up pond that is extremely far from indigenous. It has created a new ecosystem of frogs, fish, turtles, like multiple species of turtles. And so restoring would mean breaking the dam, taking up the concrete, and letting it return to a creek. That would undoubtedly push the wetland barrier back further, because you could
I'm
see it
just
kind
talking
of
about the
trace
soil, the
outline of
wetland
pond.
soil conditions, not the water course.
yeah, so Mr. Anderson,
It's fair.
I think what we like to talk about, like Catherine said, the function of the wetlands and waterways is something that a soil scientist or some other professional like that can put in a report. And a landscape architect will expect to see, you know, dimensioned drawings on title blocks and all that stuff. I think Alexis can probably suggest landscape architects who are familiar with the wetland, you know, guidelines and best practices, who might save you some time toward getting to a design that's going to satisfy the commission here.
So what I'm hearing is that this is not an adequate plan, or is the documentation not adequate?
Both.
Okay. Can you tell me what part of the plan is inadequate other than the walk path?
I think,
Nothing?
not to dump this on Alexis, but just for the sake of keeping things rolling, this is a receipt and discussion. I think there's quite a bit of work that can be done on the application that would make it maybe worth the commission's time spent. past this point. So I guess you tell me, what do you think your next steps are?
It sounds like spending a lot of money on the
Well, you
application
already did.
itself.
So, well, it's not our goal. Our goal here is not to
No.
punish anybody, but the reason I'm being pushy is because it's just going to drag out forever and ever, and we're going to end up in the same place anyway. And that place is, we need to know accurately what is and what you're proposing, and everything needs to be sort of up to the level of us being able to understand it all, top to bottom, be okay with what's being proposed, and then you can move forward with the scope. It's not a, sorry, I coming at you kind of strong here, but yeah,
Okay.
I just want to cut to the chase. Like what you're looking at here is not going to fly. I mean, pretty much anything man-made in the wetlands is not going to fly. There's a bunch of different ways to take care of invasive species. Like Catherine said, we really need a buffer between waterways, even if they are highly modified waterways. It's still part of our water system. And so, unfortunately, there are some projects we can accept, hand-drawn details. This, I'm sorry, is of the scale where we just can't accept that. It's too complex. Sorry,
Okay.
maybe I should have started with that instead of being bossy.
So maybe what I would suggest, because I'm not one of the decision makers. This group of commissioners make the decision, and so in my preliminary review letter, I kind of lay out kind of the more technical issues that I see with the application, but then kind of throw it back onto the commission. And so now that we've received some feedback, maybe I guess I would recommend that we set up a meeting, you and I, to help you. I'll help you interpret what has been said so far tonight, and kind of more clearly lay out what I believe the agency is looking for. And we had talked about pulling some other plans. Of course, there's nothing that's just like your property, but I can pull some that are similar-ish in scope, and then you can have a look at those, and I can show you ones that were approved, and then others that tanked, and just so that you have more information.
Okay. Well, I'll
Actually-
say again.
Actually, hold on, Mr. Anderson, hold on, Ms. Knight.
I just also want to flag to have a look at the tree house, because it looks on the map that it goes into, that it's straddles into the wetlands. And, that can be problematic just in terms of violations currently and in the future, because typically activity that you'd want to do to keep the tree house safe, or how it's being utilized, by kids and stuff, would be maybe in conflict with some of the protections for the wetlands. So I just wanted to flag that as you're looking at the plans with the landscape architect.
I mean, okay. Hasn't really been discussed yet. It's basically like a raised platform more than anything, with a railing on it. I built it like a deck before. Yeah, but in any case, what seems clear is that the way this is documented is at issue. I would say that the plan, my remediation plan, is still the removing the turf that we put down and the gravel that we put down, and putting some form of mixture of grass and wetland plantings in this area. And that is effectively the scope of the remediation. And whatever grass or wetland plants are acceptable is what we'll go with. Just want to make it really easy. And if we need a not handwritten document to convey that, then I'll go back to the landscape architect and ask him to give me something like that. But that's
And now that's inside the wetland. Now, do we want to talk about, not to drag this out any further, but the upland review area, which extends well into, I assume, the house at this point? Catherine, did you have another question, or did you?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear, because I don't think it was, I don't think a lawn would be looked on favorably to be put in as part of a remediation into the wetlands, just to make that clear.
Well, I can't get a lawnmower down there anyway, so I'm happy with that answer. But what was there was grass. This was a manicured area before
And if
before
you
Rumi
hadn't
moved.
touched it, we wouldn't be talking about this. You'd be living, you can have whatever grass you want and nobody would have, we'd not be having this conversation.
So in the upland area, we, and this is kind of outlined in words in the application, but what we did was effectively replacing infrastructure that was already there, which had been there for decades, long enough that it was crumbling and unsafe. I did my best to superimpose onto this is a survey showing what is there today, which is a turf area, also again without any particulate, rubber, silica, anything in it, simply the turf. We did that deliberately. A patio. He didn't mark the planter area. I asked the surveyor to get me a copy that had a little more detail. I'm still waiting to get that back. And these were all things. I have a picture I can show that probably will tell 1,000 words, but this was effectively a replacement of what was there. So I'll show you. This is my best drawing based on pictures and the aerials, which are unfortunately a little too fuzzy to use, but we had in the upper area, and I'll start over here. The red area was a patio extending off the house with a rounded brick wall. We basically squared that wall, but the wall is the same distance at its furthest point. The blue area, which is currently turf, originally was a area of paver stones with a very poorly made, mostly dry, but sort of a retaining wall that was falling apart. So we squared that off, and the extent of that goes a little bit past where it was, but it was just to be square and in line with the tree. There was sort of a set of steps in purple down here, leading from this upper area down to, there's an elevation change here. It's not shown on this map, but those steps were kind of there. There were like earthen steps, like natural look. And I think the previous homeowners did a lot of landscaping themselves in this type of work. So that was there. And there was a extremely steep, shown in green here, planter area, which led down to this green line, which was the lower dry stack wall. So the work that we did, the effect in the area was the upper area still stayed a patio and a area we replaced pavers with turf because it's more functional and much more porous. The water goes right through. It's intended to be that way for drainage. The planter bed was kind of flattened. So the elevation of the walls, like the lower stack wall is taller and the upper engineered wall goes down a little bit further. The effect is that this planter area is still there. It's just flatter. And then these two areas in purple were pour steps, and we replaced them with stone steps. So descriptively, we went into this like we kind of had only one choice of what to do with the yard due to the sort of unique land, and so we effectively squared everything off and designed it, and that's what our landscape architect is really a kind of a genius with the flow of a functional property, and made it usable.
Okay. So that's good. Commissioner Knight.
Yeah, I think just watch on some of the language. I think there's an overemphasis about restored or what what a planter is versus a wall, because when we looked at what the original were, I wouldn't necessarily have defined that as some of the walls on what you call an original planter area rather than a steep landscaped slope with a boundary, stone boundaries, and so in terms of like really changing some of the things that as the intention of what we're trying to do here is protect like the buffer area, look at the water flow that's going down into the catchment area of the, off the slope, and just allowing for filtration to happen to protect the water course, because there is close proximity of the house and the water runoff and things. So just, in discussing that with the landscape architect, just to have awareness that, again, we're looking at this through the lens of some of the functionality of what we're trying to protect environmentally from a system.
Okay, understand. My only point was that it's effectively the same as it was. I don't know if I used the word planter incorrectly, but
In
There's
two
a-
dimensions, you get that effect, but this is the point of having engineered drawings, is to be able to see maybe a cross section that shows, okay, well, here's what was is less important than what is and what will be. Okay. So you could say, look, here's what is, here's the topography. There's lines that show every foot down in elevation. There's going to be a line on the drawing that we can read, have on record. But unfortunately, we do have recordings of you, on this webinar, but that's not really how it works. So we'll have drawings from an engineer or landscape architect or whomever that will show elevations. It'll show a section through. It'll help tell the story about what can be done, like Catherine said, to maintain that buffer area between, the upland review, the wetland, and the brook. So, for example, you may think a paver deck is worse than a lawn deck, but when you think about it, you don't put fertilizer or chemicals on your paver deck, right? You may on grass. So, like, that's something that may not occur to the layperson, but a wetland scientist, landscape architect, somebody like that should be able to help inform those choices, before we see this application again.
Okay, understand. Would pictures help? Okay, I
No,
have pictures. I
Pictures
can
always
show.
help, but I think we've received and discussed enough for tonight. I think as part of the application that's going to be digitized and will be able to be shared with us online, photos can be included in that. Photos can be included on 24 by 36 drawings, right? So, like Alexis said, she can show you some applications that have the information that we typically need presented in the way we need it presented, set you up for success. But I do think, Alexis, don't we need to decide whether or not this is a substantial, what do you call it? Substantial modification?
A significant application.
Significant applications. Substantial modifications is the same thing.
So, so you can certainly go through that process if you want. When we sent out for a lot of the orders that we've done recently, we send out the corrective action significant regulated activity, and I'm pretty positive that's the one that was sent out with this one, based on, again, the proximity in the wetland itself. But you can certainly discuss that and confirm or change.
Well, no, if it's something that's a no-brainer, then there's no point in discussing it.
There's something that the
I wonder if
applicant
it is a
possibly
no-brainer
enough,
because I'm curious what makes it a no-brainer, and it's material, right? There's like an extra $1,000 for having it be significant. And look, I'm genuinely want to understand what makes it significant instead of intermediary. The presence of work in the wetland does not seem to be the determining factor. I went to the state's description of the different tiers and went kind of line by line to try to see what part of what happened here would make this significant. And I don't know if that's a determination that you can make right now without seeing a complete application, but I want to at least flag
Wait,
that
if you want.
So, Steve, the applicant had actually written to me asking why it was a significant, so your question was perfect.
Sorry, I didn't know if you were reacting to me asking that,
No,
or
no,
if you, okay.
he's that all-knowing. So, as I replied to you, it is, so generally the staff makes the determination of when it's intermediate or significant for all, and again, that's based on the scope of the activity within the upland review area, the wetland and the watercourse, and then the proximity of that scope of activity relative to the wetland and watercourse. And so generally the significant applications that staff has determined this is significant, just kind of go forward to the agency as a significant. Most of the applications that they see are intermediate applications, certainly not all, but most of them. And when they have an intermediate application, they generally pause to make sure that it doesn't warrant a larger application. Again, I think it's the scope and proximity. So the fact that you're within the wetland itself, I always argue that any activity within a wetland or within a watercourse kind of automatically has the presumption that it may have a substantial effect on that wetland or watercourse. And so you're right. Some of the things, the definition of a significant regulated activity is defined in state statute. In our local regulations, we define what a minor, intermediate, and then a significant regulated activity is. And so in addition to all the things that are listed in the state statutes for what a significant regulated activity is, and those involve, and so I can just list some of those off, any activity involving deposition or removal of material which will or may have a substantial effect on any inland, wetland, or watercourse. Any activity that substantially diminishes the natural capacity of an inland, wetland, or watercourse to support desirable fisheries, wildlife, further biological life, prevent flooding, water supply, assimilate waste, facilitate drainage, provide recreation or open space or other functions. And so certainly the kind of the removal of vegetation and kind of the smothering of astroturf, I would argue, substantially diminishes the ability of that wetland to function. And so that is why I determined it was significant. And then the other thing is above significant in the regulations is the definition of what an intermediate regulated activity is. And it has the caveat in the local regulations that no activity resulting from the deposition or grading of more than 150 cubic yards of material within a wetland, watercourse, or upland review area shall be considered intermediate. And so just by, so again, we don't have a very clear, although now with your 2021 proposal that you gave for the work that was done, we can go through and add that up, but it appears that you're extremely close to that 150 cubic yard cutoff if you add up the gravel, the sand, the rocks, etc. I'm pretty sure you've exceeded that. So
I think we were very far from the 150 in looking at the material that was actually brought. I mean,
Let's let an engineer just tell us that. Another reason to have a professional on this project. Go ahead.
I don't think the engineer is going to be able to say what was done in respect to how much material was brought, deposited, or removed.
So what an engineer would do would be to take the pre-existing topography, the contour lines, which we have mapped aerially, and it's relatively accurate. And then an engineer could get the current current lines, and then they would figure out the volume, the change from pre-work to post-work. And that's typically how one calculates the total cubic yards of material.
It sounds like the burden of proof is going to be on me to show you that it's less than 150, which sounds like a lost cause given how this meeting has gone.
It doesn't matter about, there's no lost causes.
Mhm.
There's or foregone conclusions, Mike. We're trying to make you understand that the way you have seen your project isn't exactly in line with the way the regulations would have. If for example, you had asked us before you're doing all this work and you didn't, that's fine. It happens. Pretty much everybody who comes in front of the commission has that exact problem. Like, I had no idea. That's all good. It's shit happens. But now that it is done, the clearest way we explain to people is like, look, if you had asked us before that you did this work, we would have said nah. And so the fact that it is done kind of puts you in a tough position. And what I'm sorry, what's not to understand about that? So putting AstroTurf in a wetland?
No, I completely get that.
Okay, you got
I'm
that. What don't you
separating
get
out
about
the
that?
two things, right? I'm
Okay.
talking about the work in the upland review area, which
Oh, yeah, that's we'll work through all that. You get drawings, calculate, get a good idea of what was, compare that to what is, get somebody who knows what we're expecting to propose what will be, and we're good. But I just recommend accept that. That's the way it's going to work. We will work with you. We're people just like you. We're homeowners just like you. We're not trying to lord over you in any way, shape, or form. We just need to understand that this is not like a battle for you to fight. This is an opportunity to get back in line with, the way things should have kind of been done in the first place. Okay.
I get it, and I wish I could, and I'm sure if we went back, I would have absolutely.
You could have
Done it
spent that
right the
money
first
a
time.
lot better. That would have not caused you to spend a whole bunch more money again to undo it, which I probably sucks for you, and we feel for you in that regard. So we understand that part of it too.
What I need sounds like, Alexis, so I can work with you on this. I'm not here to argue, even though I may. What I just want to understand is, it sounds like the plan is fair and the work I did should pass as well. Like the remediation plan sounds like the right approach. The work I've done.
No.
You
What
didn't.
did we tell you? We told you about, grasses in the wetland, paths in the wetland. No, that is not, you're not headed in the right direction.
I guess. Okay. The direction for me is remove what we put down and plant something in line with what Norwalk defines as appropriate
There you go.
wetland planting. That's it.
There you go.
Like for
There you
me,
go.
pretty straightforward. I don't care
Okay.
what that is. So what it sounds like is the documentation is inadequate, and that's just what I need some help with. And I came here genuinely not understanding what would need to be done there and what's possible. Like it sounds like there's going to be a lot of arbitrary assumptions made and
It's
things
not,
that
no,
it's
engineers don't do things
difficult to.
arbitrarily, actually. But let's just yeah, we're not here to argue with you. Well, you've got a whole earful that you got from us tonight. Alexis offered to give you some time to give you the tools to get an application back to us that is pointed in the right direction. And how about we just talk about it in a couple of weeks?
Okay.
Any other commissioners? I'm sorry, am I cutting anybody off? All right. Well, you know how to find us, or Alexis at least. And Alexis, do we need to do anything else before moving on?
No. So at this point, I guess I would not move forward and schedule, excuse me, scheduling a public hearing. And so, Mr. Anderson, the commission has 65 days from the date of receipt, which is today, to either make a decision or commence that public hearing. So over the next few weeks, well, I mean, I can meet this week, but we should certainly try to meet. And then as you provide more information at the next meeting, they can kind of recoup. At some point, they'll have a public hearing, but they don't want to schedule that until your application is kind of teed up and ready to go.
Because once the public hearing is done, there's like no more changes to make. That's like it, right? That's like dead end. It's do or die at that point. So it behooves you to get us as much as you can, as soon as you can. Don't let it drag out, because it's just gonna, yeah, it's no fun.
Well, some folks may show up in 10 minutes because I was under the impression this was a public hearing. That's what the application seemed to imply. So I sent notices out to my neighbors to show up to a public hearing today.
Oh,
Oh,
shoot.
no.
I have
You
some
had sent those. That was a little unclear. Gotcha.
Yeah, that was part of the application. That was,
Well, when 7 o'clock comes around in 9 minutes, we will we'll let them know.
sounds good.
The miscommunication there, sorry. Okay. Thank you, and good night. We'll talk to you again.
Okay, thanks.
Bye. S24-646, 52 Wilson Road.
Okay, so the 52 Wilson is, let me just kind of
Hello.
do a quick aerial photo. The applicant is here. So I'm going to start with location of Wilson Ave. Share my screen real quick.
Hey, Alexis, good to see you. Maybe while you pull it up, I just want to say, first of all, thank you very much for hearing us tonight. We are new to Rowayton community and very much loving it so far. I also want to apologize in advance. I have like a little visitor here. My wife is working late, so I'm on single parent duty. If she makes noise, please excuse us. I will have to bring her to bed very soon, so I'm going to keep this very short, I promise. And I'll take all the direction. And lastly, Alexis, thank you so much for your help and guidance in navigating me through this process, helping me fill out the documentation and coming out to our property.
Absolutely.
You've been extremely helpful.
So 52 Rowayton Ave, I'm sorry, Wilson Ave is in Rowayton. It's immediately north of Rowayton School. So this is Rowayton School. Here's Wilson Ave, comes down and across. Rowayton Ave is over here, and it's this property here. And then if we zoom in, this is what it looks like last month. And if we go to March, this is the a pond, and then adjacent to it are wetlands. And then there's an uphill slope that crests approximately here. There's one very large tree here, and then a variety of small trees here. And then it slopes down to Rowayton Avenue with mostly lawn conditions. And applicant, would you like me to share my screen, or would you like to share your screen and show them your proposal?
If you don't mind sharing the screen, that'd be very much appreciated. I have my hands a little bit full, but I'm happy to talk through.
Okay.
And just to give an upshot, maybe while we run into it. So basically, this is a very simple proposal. I'm not trying to build anything, or we have a wonderful 300-year-old oak tree. I've been told it's the oldest in Fairfield County, and the prior owners have not really taken too much care of, unfortunately, the outside area of the house or the inside, and that has allowed what I've been told invasive species Norwegian maples to encroach on the tree. They're not all that big, 6 to 14 inches. The oak tree here is the very big tree at the bottom. And what we are hoping to do is just remove some of the Norwegian maples. I think it's like 6 or 7 of them, which would hopefully, according to my landscape architect, allow the oak to have a little bit more sunlight that, and it's not encroaching. Some of them are dead already over the years, and that's what we're trying to do. I've been told that when we remove them, we should be putting down maybe wood spans or something. We can put down whatever, it can stay as is. We're not trying to plant or put grass, all that stays as is. My landscape architect has advised that we should plant some native shrubs, where the removal is just so there's some vegetation to soak up the water, and we'd be more than happy to do that.
This is the narrative. And so, like you said, the trees to be removed are groups of Norway maples ranging from 5 to 15-inch diameter at breast height. You're not proposing to remove the tree stumps. Those will stay in place. You would plant shrubs along the existing limit of lawn. As you spoke about, you'd like to use some of the wood chips that are going to be produced from the tree removal, but you would stop those at the crest of the hill. So they'd be on the slope sloping down towards Rowayton Avenue, but not the slope sloping down towards the wetland. And I know that you had a letter from them. Here we go. That's what I was looking for. And so these are some of the photographs that you added to your application. And so this is the oak tree that you mentioned, the very large tree. This is kind of the crest of the hill. And so to the back of the photo taker is the wetland and pond. And then you can see the slope going down to Rowayton Ave in the front here. And so the marked trees are all the ones that you would want removed. And then this is looking with your back to the house, kind of standing up here, looking kind of towards the wetland and pond. Is this thing back in the background? This is kind of a slope down. This is wetland vegetation way back here. This is the neighbor's garage. And so these would be the trees to be removed. All sound accurate?
Yes.
All accurate, yeah. And I would just highlight, you mentioned the topography. It's a little bit of a hill. So it's a downward slope into the wetlands, and then it's a downward slope to the house. And really what we're talking about is the peak of the hill, if you can call it that.
Right. Right. So these are the contour lines with the slope going down to the wetland. Wetland is here. The wetland itself is fairly flat. You have a slope coming up to it. You're pretty much doing work at the top of that crest. The upland review area is approximately here. And then for the agency, I haven't had a chance to upload it to the website, but the applicant is doing some patios. They are all on the downslope part of, they're within the upland review area, but they're in they're technical. I'll add that technically. There's a patio kind of in this general location. So technically within the upland review area, but again, there's a hill slope separating the work from the wetland. So staff sees absolutely no potential for impact, but since there's an application before you, thought it would be best just to add that for transparency.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Alexis, for mentioning that. Absolutely right. So we have right now, all that area is lawn, basically at the back of the house. And what we're hoping to do is building a grade level bluestone patio. And like, I believe Alexis, you've seen the plan. One corner starts encroaching on breaching the wetland boundary, which you see in that picture.
I think that's it.
Okay. Any commissioner questions? Alexis, did you review were there proposed species for the shrubs?
Yes, they are proposing 5 green giants along the side property line, and then a total of 18 shrubs, all both native, sweet spire and arrowwood viburnum. The proposed shrubs are smaller than what you normally see, but they're kind of right next to the house, so I'm not too concerned. That they seem appropriate for the amount of activity, I believe.
Okay. Great. Well, then, if no one has any other thoughts or questions, Alexis, if you could draft a resolution for next meeting that we can ideally act on, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, so the agency cannot make any decisions tonight. By law, they're required to wait 14 days to make a decision. But they
Yep.
will meet again October 22nd, and I'll send you another invite for that meeting. But it sounds like they, the group here at least, they don't have any concerns.
And babies always help with applications anyway, so you're a shoo-in.
You know, I'm gonna bear the brunt of that. Now on the other side of it, I try to put it on for bed. But I very much appreciate the time. Thank you very much for considering our proposal. And any follow-up questions, Alexis, I'm sure we will be in touch. I'm happy to consider, of course, any and all necessary amendments. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so for the sake of anyone who has called in, tuned in, whatever, for a public hearing at 7 o'clock, is there no one on? No one's
No,
in?
no
one's
one,
viewing?
no one's in, so.
Oh, okay, great. Forget it then.
Yeah.
Moving on to discussion and or decision, S24-644, 189 Perry Avenue.
Okay, so this is an application that you've considered for a while. This is actually the second application. At the last meeting, the applicant's representative, Mr. Wayne Devanzo, who's a PE, had submitted a drainage plan or a drainage report and a site plan that shows keeping of the two previously installed dry wells at the property and removing the newer gravel that had been deposited. And I'll share my screen, and then Mr. Devanzo, feel free to pipe in. So the two dry wells are these two circles here. This is the eastern property line. The property line abuts the Silver Mine River. The banks of the Silver Mine River are pretty much at the property line at this little stick out, and then kind of along here. The applicant is proposing to remove the gravel area here and here and restore to lawn, which it had been previously. When you received this at your last meeting, you had requested that I draft a memorandum that included a draft resolution to approve with conditions. And I think that's it for me.
Just for the applicant, Wayne Devanzo, Fairfield County Engineering. I'm sure you're familiar with this. I won't take up your time, just here to answer any questions you may have.
I'm seeing on the memo line 3, condition 3, all the proposed work must be completed within 2 months of issuance of this correction action approval. I'm assuming the property owner is okay with that?
Yes, I'm sure he is. He's eager to go to it, so I'm sure that's not an issue.
Okay. Any other commissioner questions? All right, well then I'll just move to approve the memo dated October 3rd for S24-644 as written. Can I have a second, please?
Sure, I'll second.
Heather, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Whoa, whoa,
Oh.
whoa.
Paul
What?
cannot vote on this actually, because I think it was
Oh,
received
okay.
before he became a commissioner.
Cancel that one.
All right, so
But
what,
moving forward,
three,
it's fair game.
3 yeas and 1 abstention then?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for dialing in, Wayne.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
Night. Okay. Well, there we go. Woo! I was at a low there for a little while, but now we seem to be out of the woods. Meeting minutes.
Oh,
Goody.
Lord.
Did you say something, Heather?
No, I'd love to tell you. I didn't laugh. I've been insane. So I'm gonna read. I'm reading.
You're reading them now. You're skimming.
But I thought, Paul, you were taking over for me. So the pressure was off. I don't know what happened here.
I thought we could alternate.
Ah, man. All right.
Just trying to compromise.
Thank you. That was thoughtful.
I gotta have like a Jeopardy audio clip on my phone or something when we're.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. They look good. They're beautiful. They're lovely.
I'll second that. I just skipped.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
You know, basically, I just control F to see if I said anything wrong, right?
Okay, do we want to discuss conservation initiatives? I'm sure everyone is all excited to see the news about
Yay.
Manresa development.
Marisa.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Assuming they happen.
Yeah, it's a long road. It's like a 10-year vision, but what a wonderful vision.
Yeah,
That was really surprising, honestly. I had no idea that was even.
I don't
In
think
the
it was
work.
on anybody's radar screen.
It was in the, like, I found out over the New York Times article. I was like, what?
will we, so we had already an application for some like emptying of some ponds or something like that, or moving some dirt, Alexis? Will there be, I assume,
Yeah,
more?
so the previous owner, the NRG, was doing soil remediation. And so you saw a couple of applications where they first did some test pits for soil remediation, where they kind of skimmed off a layer and then replanted, and then and they were planting plants that were good at kind of uptaking some of the pollutants that contaminate the site. And that worked well. So then they came back for another application to do that some more. And all that work, they have pockets of inland wetlands, and then obviously a lot of tidal wetlands as well.
Which we'll stay away from the tidal wetlands, but the inland wetlands are gonna come to us theoretically.
Right. Right.
Can I ask a question?
Hmm.
These plants that remediate the soil, they take the bad stuff out of the soil, but then where does the bad stuff go? Is it in the plants?
Yeah, that was my recollection. So some
Then
of
what
the
do you do with the
soil-
plants?
well,
You
so I
don't
think-
forage it.
I think yeah, don't forage. That's why there's a chain link fence around this place currently.
Yeah.
So I think part of that, I'd have to look at the application. My memory is honestly failing because I don't remember the details of the remediation. But so part of it is stripping that first. I can't remember what the depth was. I want to say one foot or maybe 18 inches of soil. And then that goes to there are facilities out there, kind of like your like a dump.
Contaminated landfill,
where it's
lined and
Yep.
drained and ventilated and. Yeah.
And then it would be the same. It depends on what the pollutant is, whether that material has to also go to a landfill, or if it's altered.
yeah,
somehow.
probably.
Cool. Anyway.
Good
Yeah,
question that I don't have the answer for.
It's cool.
But yeah, that's definitely the biggest environmental and conservation news of the month.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay. Any other commissioners want to discuss any conservation initiatives? We don't have any hot burning ones at the moment. Okay, moving on then. Comments of staff.
So the last meeting I had mentioned a spreadsheet of violations, and so I'll send that shortly. I was going to just email it to you, but then I realized, well, it's an ever-changing, daily changing document, and so I will send you all a link that hopefully you should be able to access through.
You're too good to
Shared
us.
Drive.
That's a cliffhanger right there.
What's that?
You're too good to us. A spreadsheet of violations just sounds.
Yeah. But, and I don't think it's something that you need to look at often, but sometimes when you have violations, looking back to, well, when did this originally start? Might be helpful. Or for our last 5, you know, how long did we give them to come up with a plan? Or, you know, when was this violation first considered? It's probably good information to know, especially for some of these long-termers.
I agree. I get confused a lot of times.
If you cannot open it, let me, once I send it, I'll probably send it after the meeting, but just let me know. If you get something from me that you can't open.
Does anybody ever record, or like, how does the data, like, does anybody look at the data to say like, how many violations are there in total, like across Connecticut, or do you feed back into like, does UConn track some of the stuff, or like how long it takes for remediation, you know?
That would actually be very good information. So we do have just cleaning it up. So the state of Connecticut, DEEP, has these forms that a reporting form that tracks all activities that the agency and its agent do. So there's a form for every application or every violation. We have to fill out a form that informs the state about certain metrics. Let me just grab one. So it gathers metrics about what kind of action was taken and whether a public hearing was held. And then it talks about, we have to fill out a brief description. And then they have some activity codes, some activity type codes, and then the amount of wetlands altered, and the amount of watercourses altered, and then the amount of upland review area altered. And then if there's been any restoration, enhancement, or creation of wetlands. But, so we send those off. But I don't know if on their website right now. Not sure actually how that information is used. There's nothing publicly facing under status and trends provided. So they years ago they would send out kind of an overview of, but it was much more kind of quantitative as opposed to qualitative about the total number of acres of wetlands lost, for example, for each municipality. But I haven't actually seen that report in a while. But and then other than that, there are some places where municipal wetland regulators gather annually. So one is the Connecticut Association of Wetland Scientists, or CAWS. They have an annual meeting each year. And then Kekiwik, which I need to send to you guys. Kekiwik is the Connecticut Association of Conservation and Inland Wetland Commissions. And they have an annual meeting in, I think it's the second Saturday of November. And so often there's kind of, yeah, but no, nothing like what you're thinking.
Yeah, because it would be helpful. I mean, because you know, it was almost I don't know, a few years ago, it was like
Yeah.
the year anniversary of the Inland Wetlands
Yes.
Agency, and nobody really did a analysis of it. Which,
Of over the years, like the impact.
but I mean, it would be really helpful just in terms of, you know, because we talk a little bit about like the open space, and Connecticut has the open space goals, but I don't know that it has, you know, it thinks that the act covers it, but we're not really measuring how we're still losing wetlands.
Right. How effective.
It is, and
Hmm.
it's as you
Yeah.
know, at the current condition of what some of the wetlands are, you know, in saying,
Mhm.
oh, sorry, because it's been hodgepodged, you know, because it hasn't been around forever.
Right.
And so it, you know, it's always a challenging conversation to say, well, it's not exactly about what is, it's about the system's really important.
Right. Right.
I
Trying to
also
make-
think it would be hard to quantify because of the fact that you can't quantify what it would be without.
Right. I mean, like I certainly look back, like I know that the Norwalk Inland Wetland Agency is doing a better job today than it was in the 80s and 90s. But I don't have a way to really measure that, in part because so many things, they didn't regulate so many activities. So there's no direct record of them, other than that, you know, I can see it in aerial photos, and there's you know, in our files, there's just a sign off, or, you know, no permit required. And I know that right, it wasn't until 1998 when the regulations were first passed, there was just focus on direct wetland and watercourse impacts. And so when that was first adopted, they regulated only activities that were directly in wetlands and watercourses, and they didn't really look at the area adjacent. And then in 88, not 98, the state statutes were tweaked again and clarified that yes, Inland Wetland Agency can regulate activities upland of wetlands and watercourses, as long as there is that nexus is there, that there's still a potential that activity that you're regulating may have an impact. And then it wasn't until 2005 that Norwalk had a defined upland review area. So there definitely have been kind of an increase in the consistency of regulation, but yeah, I don't have any good metrics.
Yeah, I mean, it would be useful for us to know, like, are we effective, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I think the other point to what I was trying to say too is like it's so hard to quantify because even if wetland area has lessened to some degree or been like if there were no statewide agencies or whatnot, like how much more would that have been, or how much, you know what I mean? But I agree. I think it would be nice to have a metric of some like
Well, for the a November meeting, I think one of the metrics, and it's yeah, I was just thinking that water quality. I mean, so one of the reasons that we have wetland regulations, you know, there's multiple reasons. There's flood control and water quality. Water quality is definitely improving in a lot of our, not all, but a lot of our watercourses, certainly on the Norwalk River, which has one of the oldest data sets around for water quality testing.
cool.
So I can certainly reach out to the people that do that testing. And I think a few years ago, they had done a nice kind of synopsis of the last couple decades. That definitely indicates that we're doing something right with, you know,
Yeah.
between wetland protection and then stormwater management improvements. The two of those combined have definitely caused water quality increases.
And maybe it's like that 5 mile, like I don't know where, but you know, some of the bigger tributaries that like the water quality is a good measure. That's
Mhm. Yeah, I certainly have the Silver Mine,
Yeah.
which is a tributary of the Norwalk, and then Keeler Brook, and which is a tributary of the 5 Mile. I have
Interesting.
data for all of those.
I can't imagine what the Norwalk River was when they do this in like the 70s or
Yeah.
something. And it was just
Yeah.
like the Gowanus Canal. Like,
It wasn't that bad. You know, it's
No.
interesting. Certain metrics have definitely improved. We use indicator bacteria
mhm.
is a big one as an indication of other pathogens. And then some of the fish data is very good with the removal of dams. We actually have like sea lamprey now, which are a good thing. Going upstream to the Norwalk River, we have sea run brown trout that are headed up the river. So we have a lot of good kind of fin fish habitat restoration. But then on the other hand, within the sound, we have a lot of fish species that are still changing, and some have really plummeted. We've seen an increase in blue crab and just kind of a different mix. So of course, once you get to the sound, that's like a big
Yeah, that's not.
that's a big pool.
Interesting.
Very interesting stuff. Did you guys read that? No, I'm gonna stop. Never mind. Okay.
Now I want to know, but okay. Yep.
There's a book that maybe RFK Jr. wrote before he went crazy about the sound. Something about this, how the sound was died and came back, blah blah blah. Anyway, okay. Comments, commissioners. I don't know. Have we checked that box? Commissioners need to say anything? Catherine's not talking to us. Are you?
Yeah, no,
One
she's
sec.
not.
Muted and then muted. It's the Fine Piece of Water, which is the Long Island Sound book that I recently read.
Mm.
Ah. Cool.
The environmental history.
Hmm.
on
Fine
it.
piece of water.
Piece of water.
Cool. Anybody else with anything they want to add, or would someone like to move to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move to adjourn the meeting. I don't have anything more, unless people do.
I'll second it.
My brain is shot.
All in favor?
Uh,
Great. All right, thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Have a
Good
good
night.
night.
Thanks, Steve. Good work out there today.
Oh, the foreword was by RFK Jr. That's right. Tom Anderson wrote it.